Hello, and welcome to the Gathering Greenwood Quick Guide video tutorial for finding and using local resources for Oklahoma genealogy. Today, we're diving into the rich world of Oklahoma genealogy, specifically how to find and use local resources that can help you uncover your family's history. As many of you know, genealogy research can sometimes feel like piecing together a puzzle with scattered pieces. But here in Oklahoma, we're fortunate to have a wealth of local records, archives, and historical societies that can provide these missing links. Throughout this short presentation, I'll guide you through the types of records and places that can open doors to your family's past, from county courthouses and historical societies to tribal rolls and military records. By the end, you'll have a better understanding of where to look, how to approach your research, and the powerful resources available right here in our state. Let's get started and see how we can connect with our ancestors through the local history of Oklahoma. When researching your Oklahoma ancestry, utilizing local resources is a key part of uncovering valuable family history. Court clerk offices, historical societies, and other local institutions are rich with information that can enhance your genealogical research. Next are tips on how to find and use these essential resources. Let's discuss what you can find at the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center and your local library. When it comes to unlocking the stories of our ancestors, few places in Oklahoma are as rich with resources as the Oklahoma Historical Society History Center in Oklahoma City. As the state's official repository of historical records and artifacts, the History Center is a treasure trove for genealogists, whether you're just beginning your journey or are deep into the branches of your family tree. The facility itself is both a museum and a research center. On one side, you'll find exhibits that paint a vivid picture of Oklahoma's past, from Native American heritage and the land runs to the Dust Bowl and the Civil Rights Movement. These exhibits give valuable context to the lives our ancestors lived and the times they lived through. But the real gem for genealogists lies in the research center, housed within the same building. Here's a look at what you can discover. Old newspapers are gold mines of information, and the Oklahoma Historical Society has one of the largest collections in the state. Whether you're looking for obituaries, marriage announcements, or even social gossip columns that mention your ancestors, these papers can fill in personal details that official records often overlook. The Oklahoma History Research Center houses a significant collection of African American newspapers, including titles like the Black Dispatch, Langston City Herald, Muskogee Lantern, Oklahoma Eagle, Oklahoma Guide, and Oklahoma Safeguard. These publications offer valuable insights into the Black experience in Oklahoma. Old African American newspapers can provide valuable genealogical information, including names, birth and death dates and places, marriage details, and even social events and land ownership records. They also offer insights into the lives of your ancestors, like their community involvement, social events, and the impact of historical events on their lives. Many of these papers are available through the Gateway to Oklahoma History. Some are only on microfilm at the OHS Research Center. At the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center, you can find a range of vital records and census data that are incredibly useful for tracing African American ancestry in Oklahoma. While some records are more limited due to historical documentation practices, there are still many valuable resources available. Here's a breakdown of what you can expect to find. Let's start with vital records. That includes birth, marriage, and death documents. Oklahoma didn't begin keeping statewide birth and death records until 1908, but that doesn't mean you're out of luck if your ancestors lived here earlier. In fact, many earlier birth records can be found through church records, midwife reports, the Freedmen's Bureau, or even old family Bibles that are part of donated manuscript collections. Marriage records are one of the most accessible resources. These were kept at the county level, and many go back to statehood in 1907, and some even earlier. They've often been indexed and microfilmed, making them easier to locate. These records are extremely helpful when you're trying to confirm family relationships or find a maiden name. When it comes to death records, again, 1908 is the starting point for statewide tracking, but you can often supplement these with obituaries, especially those published in African American newspapers, as well as with cemetery records and even logs from local funeral homes, some of which are preserved in the Research Center's archives. Now let's shift to census data, which is one of the richest sources for building a family history. The 1870 federal census is especially important. It's the first census that recorded formerly enslaved individuals. From 1900 onward, census records help you follow families over time, showing details like residence, occupation, education, and property ownership. If your ancestors were part of the 5 tribes, the Dawes rolls and census cards from 1898 to 1914 are essential. These were created during the allotment period and list freedmen, African Americans who were formerly enslaved by tribal members or who lived in tribal communities. These records include names, family relationships, tribal affiliation, and land allotments, as well as applications and interviews that offer even more content. There are also territorial and tribal censuses that predate statehood. Though they're less complete, they can be incredibly helpful, especially for tracing family members in Indian Territory or in early all-Black towns like Boley, Langston, and Rentisville. When the 5 tribes were forcibly removed from their homelands in the 1830s and 40s, people enslaved by the tribes also made the long journey to Indian Territory. By 1861, 8 to 10,000 Black people were enslaved throughout Indian Territory. In 1863, the Cherokee National Council passed an act freeing all people enslaved by their tribe, but many enslavers ignored the law. After the Civil War, new treaties between U.S. government and the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee or Creek, and Seminole abolished slavery among the tribes and outlined citizenship rights available to the freedmen and their descendants. The Dawes rolls list individuals who lived with their tribe in Indian Territory, who chose to apply and were approved by the Dawes Commission. Dawes enrollees are listed by household on census cards, and freedmen cards list individuals formerly enslaved by one of the 5 tribes. The term freedmen also is used to describe the descendants of these individuals. Although there was intermarriage between the Blacks and Indians, the Dawes Commission enrolled people of mixed heritage as freedmen and indicated no blood relation to the tribe. Enrollment for the Dawes rolls began in 1898 and ended in March of 1907, although there were a few names added as late as 1914. Census cards list the enrollee's name, age, sex, blood quantum, tribe, place of residence, and roll number in general. The age shown on the census card is the age of the individual around 1902. Members of the same household are typically listed on the same card, and freedmen cards include names of the enrollee's former owner on the back. When tracing African American ancestry in Oklahoma, one of the most important resources we have comes from the Freedmen's Bureau, which was established after the Civil War to help formerly enslaved people transition into freedom. These records are incredibly rich in personal detail. They include marriage records, especially important because many couples weren't legally allowed to marry during slavery. You'll also find labor contracts, which can show where a person worked and lived, and school records listing students by name and age. The Freedmen's Bureau also kept logs for food and medical aid, and even documented personal testimonies from freed individuals, sometimes heartbreaking accounts of family separations or injustices. If your ancestors lived in Indian Territory or early Oklahoma during Reconstruction, these records could offer a powerful window into their lives, struggles, and resilience. The Dawes Rolls, compiled between 1898 and 1914, were created to determine who was eligible for tribal citizenship in the 5 tribes: the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole nations, as land was being allotted by the U.S. government. Many African Americans were included in these rolls as freedmen of the 5 tribes, meaning they were formerly enslaved by tribal members or descended from those who were. Of these records, you'll often find full names, ages, tribal affiliations, and family relationships, all documented on what are called census cards. These cards often list entire families together and may be accompanied by land allotment information, interviews, and even on rare occasions, photographs. The Dawes Rolls are a key piece of genealogical research for many African American families in Oklahoma, especially those with tribal ties. At the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center, you can find a wealth of land, property, and military records that are crucial for tracing African American ancestry in Oklahoma. These records offer a glimpse into the lives of African Americans who lived in the state, particularly those who navigated the challenges of land ownership and military service in the post-Civil War era and beyond. When researching African American families in Oklahoma, land and property records can provide powerful clues about where your ancestors lived, how they built their lives, and even how wealth and legacy were passed on. At the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center, you can find Dawes land allotment records for African Americans who were freedmen of the 5 tribes. These documents show the specific land parcels that were granted to individuals, including maps and legal descriptions. In addition to tribal allotments, some African Americans acquired land through homesteading on land runs, and these homestead records, like applications and land patents, can also be found here. You'll also find county-level land deeds and tax records, which tell you who bought or sold property, when, and sometimes even how much. These are especially helpful for locating property in Oklahoma's historic Black towns like Boley and Langston. Finally, the Research Center also holds old plats and maps, which help you see the actual layout of communities where African American families once thrived. These visual records can make your family's story feel very real and grounded in place. Military records are another key source for learning about African American ancestors, and the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center has a strong collection covering several wars and time periods. For the Civil War, you'll find records for those who served in the United States colored troops, including enlistment information and pension applications, which often contain family details and even personal testimonies. Some African Americans served as buffalo soldiers, especially in the West and in Indian Territory. These soldiers left behind military service files that can provide insight into both their service and their post-war lives. You can also search World War I and II draft registration cards, which are incredibly detailed. These cards typically list an individual's full name, birth date, residence, occupation, and next of kin, all in one document. For those who served and later applied for military pensions, you might find widows' applications or files that list children, marriage dates, and death information. The Research Center also maintains grave registries and obituaries for veterans, which can help you find burial sites or discover if your ancestor received military honors. Altogether, these records help paint a fuller picture of how African Americans in Oklahoma contributed to and were shaped by our nation's history through military service. The Oklahoma Historical Society manuscript archives contain paper items including letters, scrapbooks, and journals, personal or business-related records and correspondence, brochures, and ephemera. The collections listed here also include a variety of materials pertaining to Black history in Oklahoma. The Oklahoma History Center houses a collection of images depicting the Black experience in Oklahoma, including those of African Americans in Fort Gibson. African American families and homesteads in the 1880s, and images related to events like the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. The center also features exhibits and resources about Black history in Oklahoma, including exhibits about all Black towns like Boley. At the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center, there's a remarkable collection of African American photographic archives that offer a powerful visual connection to the past. These collections document the everyday lives and achievements and struggles of Black Oklahomans across generations. You'll find historic photos from all Black towns like Boley and Langston, showing families, businesses, and community events. These are rich archives from educational institutions, especially Langston University, and from freedmen schools in Indian Territory. Churches, which were central to African American life, are well represented too, with images of pastors, choirs, and baptisms. The collection also includes military portraits of African American veterans from the Civil War through Vietnam and powerful photos from the Civil Rights Movement here in Oklahoma. And perhaps most meaningful, there are countless family and individual portraits, often donated by descendants, capturing the pride, strength, and resilience of African American families across the state. Many of these images are available online through the Gateway to Oklahoma History, or can be viewed in person at the Research Center, where archivists can help guide you in your search. County clerk offices hold essential local records, valuable for filling in family details not found in federal or tribal records. When researching African American ancestry in Oklahoma, one of the most important local resources you can turn to is the county court clerk's office. These offices house a variety of legal records that can help bring family stories to life and fill in the gaps that census or vital records sometimes leave behind. For example, you'll find marriage licenses and certificates that document unions, often listing not just the couple, but also their parents and witnesses, valuable for linking generations. Divorce records can also shed light on family structure and even property arrangements. One of the richest sources is probate records, which include wills, estate inventories, and guardianship appointments. These documents often list heirs and property owned, giving us insight into family dynamics and economic status. You can also uncover land and property records, such as deeds, land transfers, and mortgage agreements, that tell us where your ancestors lived and how they built their lives. In addition, civil and criminal court cases may mention African American individuals as parties, witnesses, or jurors, offering a window into community involvement and challenges faced. Occasionally, you'll even find name change petitions or guardianship records, especially useful when tracking children after a parent's death or when following a family that may have altered their name post-emancipation. The sometimes overlooked county courthouses hold some of the most personal and revealing records available, especially for African Americans who built their lives in Oklahoma's towns, counties, and communities. When researching African American ancestry in Oklahoma, one of the most important local resources you can turn to is the county court clerk's office. These offices house a variety of legal records that can help bring family stories to life and fill in the gaps that censuses or vital records sometimes leave behind. For example, you'll find marriage licenses and certificates that document unions, often listing not just the couple, but also their parents and witnesses. In addition to the more common records, there are several lesser known but incredibly valuable documents to explore. Court cases, both civil and criminal, can shed light on lawsuits, disputes, and even testimonies involving your ancestors. Name change petitions are especially important after emancipation, as many people adopted new names. Guardianship files offer insight into the lives of minors, orphans, and their caretakers. Affidavits and sworn statements often contain personal stories and legal declarations that bring your research to life. And on rare occasions, you might find manumission or freedom papers, especially from before statehood. These records matter because they provide rich context and connection. They can reveal legal standing, economic conditions, and family relationships. They also help trace land ownership and family movement, giving you a fuller picture of your ancestors' lives. Historical societies play a powerful role in preserving the stories of the past. And for those of us researching African American ancestry in Oklahoma, they can be some of the most valuable resources available. Across Oklahoma, local and county historical societies preserve family documents, photographs, oral histories, school records, and even church registers, many of which never made it into state or national archives. These collections often include African American newspapers, freedmen community histories, and photos from all Black towns like Boley, Langston, and Rentisville. These societies help us connect the dots between ancestors and the communities they helped build. Places where African Americans opened businesses, ran schools, served in the military, and worshiped together. When you walk into a local historical society, you're stepping into a place where everyday people's stories are honored and kept alive. So don't overlook these local gems. Reach out, make a visit, ask about African American collections, and you might just uncover a piece of your family's untold story. When diving into local resources, it's important to start with location. Genealogical records are often organized by county or city, so knowing exactly where your ancestors lived can make your search much more efficient. Patience is also key. Many local records aren't digitized, so you might need to try different approaches or dig a little deeper. And don't be afraid to connect with local genealogists, especially those based in Oklahoma. Their specialized knowledge can guide you to hidden or underutilized resources you might not find on your own. As we've explored throughout this presentation, uncovering African American history in Oklahoma requires a blend of determination, curiosity, and resourcefulness. From court records and land deeds to freedmen rolls, military files, and the photo archives of local historical societies, each piece adds depth to the story of our families. Local and state institutions like the Oklahoma Historical Society and county courthouses are treasure troves, holding records that might seem ordinary on the surface, but reveal extraordinary stories when placed in the context of resilience, community, and identity. Whether you're just beginning your genealogy journey or continuing one that's been passed down, remember this: every document you find, every name you uncover, and every photo you save helps restore the narrative of generations who came before you. Thank you for watching this quick guide video tutorial in finding and using local resources for Oklahoma genealogy. For other videos in this series, please visit the greenwoodculturalcenter.org.